Hello again. I abruptly ended the last video because it was getting too long. So what I've done, I've sliced that part of the video into this one, sort of an addendum, and it'll sort of jump straight into playing with the interaction and then moving on to the icons. So enjoy. If I run this, if I come up now and press E, nothing. If I press Q, there you go. Q now does the interact. So that means now, whenever your player programs a key, because at some point, if you're doing all this interact and things to do this properly, you can set up menu screens for users to map their own keys. So as long as the correct key is mapped, you can open the door. Q doesn't work. E. There we go. That's as simple as it needs to be for interacting now with your player. If you wanted it to be the mouse button, you could be the mouse button. Let me just open up this. If you click that and then click the left mouse button and save, if I come up, click the left mouse button, there we go, exactly the same thing. That's how easy it is. I will probably do a bite-sized interactions series on inputs. It'll only be a shorter one, obviously, but yeah, that's how simple it is. Really is that easy. We have interaction. So if we now open our BPC interact trace, this is what we've got. So that's our begin play. We'll just scooch that out of the way a little bit. We'll put some comments on that later. You will have this. This is how we've set it up. I will just show you now. If I bring up this one, and I'll bring it up towards this so we can compare them. If I level these off to roughly there, okay. So as you can see, I've also added in here an and. Yeah. So we'll add that in there. That just to make sure that we're not doing anything without checking that this has a hit. Otherwise we could start causing errors. I did forget to put that in last time. So this is hit there. If I bring this up here, drag off here, ignore this down here, this is what you've got. So after it should say get traced by channel. Yeah, I've just created this new function, didn't I, just to show you we're working. In fact, let's make mine look like yours now so that it doesn't look odd. So there we go. So you've got the same as this, and then we've got hit actor there. So we've got our object BPI interact to check, see if it implements it, and we want to make sure that it does, and we got a hit, because there's no point doing it if we haven't got a hit. So we drag off here, type and you want and boolean, and then this one into the bottom of the and this one into the boolean. So that basically now fixes that we make sure we get a hit before we start checking things. Yeah, less chance of getting an error. So that's the same as what I had before. The interact target, for some reason I haven't hooked up, and I don't know why, which is this hit actor. Not sure why that isn't set up. I've got sworn we did that. If I haven't, I apologize. In fact, I could actually cheat here and do that. Yeah, so our interact target is set. Oh no, we don't need that one. And we set our text and we show the interact. Yeah, if you look here, I've got exactly the same, but if I just bring out, that comes out, what we got here, show interact and show interact. Yeah, there's two of those, that's fine, but that's because we've added them in. So let's show you that now. If I bring that across to here, basically that's what you've got, and this is what I've got. Now the difference between this one that you've got and this one here, this one handles icons. So if I hook this one into my event tick, compile and save, I've got the letter E that comes up because that's my interact key. If I go in to my actions, sorry, input and AMC interact, change that to Q, and I run again, it now says Q. So this is what this bit of code is doing. It's determining what key, and it's getting an icon for that key. And you're going to say, well, where does the icon come from? Which I'll show you in a sec. It doesn't come with Unreal. There might be one in there, but I haven't looked, to be fair. So, oops, don't want to minimize. I must have closed all the windows. So let's go back into our blueprints, interact trace. So let's plug this one back into our one that we're making. We need to check the key mappings, and I've done that in a function. I've put this into what's called a blueprint library. Don't need to, but I'll just show you what I did. So in my content drawer, in my blueprints folder, I've got this BPFL game, and basically it's a blueprint function library, and it just means it's a library that can be accessed from any blueprint within the game. So it's common functions basically. So we may want to get the icon somewhere else, we may not, so I'll put it in there. And to do that, you right click, come to blueprint and click blueprint function library, and I called it BPFL underscore game. Yeah, so that's my game blueprint function library. Open it up, and I've got two functions in here. You've got get icon by key and get key mappings. Yeah, we'll start with the get key mappings. Right, so if you click here, new function, and call that get key mappings, I'm going to delete that because I'm going to go through this bit by bit. Okay, when you have created it, you want to come on this side and click on your inputs, and your first one's going to be mapping context, is what you want to call it. And when you click on your type, you want to type in there mapping context, and you want to set it to object reference. Okay, create a new one, plus on the inputs, and call it input action, and that one you want to set to input action, and make sure you choose the input action object reference, and you should end up with that. So let me just delink those for the time being, and I'll show you and I'll build it as we go. Right, we want to iterate through all the mapping contexts to find the one we want, so we can get our icon out of it, and then we need to again get the information and do a little bit more jiggery pokery. So we need to get our mapping context mapping input mapping context mapping data. Yeah, okay. So from the mapping context here, you want to get the default key mappings, which is that. But unfortunately, that's not exactly what we want. We then need to get from there, you need to type in input mapping, and you want to break the input mapping context mapping data. Okay, that will give you that. We then want to iterate through that in a loop with a break. So we want to come out of this, and we want to type for loop. You want a for each loop with break. We then drag the exec to the exec, so we now have a link. So our input mapping context data is going to this array. We then need to check if the input action matches the input action we've got here. So to do that, again, we need to break this pin. I don't think, can we split it? Well, we can split it. So we split the pin. You could just use break, but we'll split the pin. And you want to get the element action, the input action. This is, it says element action, but it's actually just the action, which is this. So we're going to perform an equals on this. So equals, and we're matching it with the input action coming into our function there. And we're going to bring that down. Whoop. And I'm going to do another one. Just double click on the line and bring that down, make it tidier. So we now have a check to see if that matches. We then need to come off this, do a branch to clarify that equals, and then we now need to check if the key is a valid key that's being pressed. Okay, so we need to come out of this and say is valid, and it should come up is valid key. It's just a double check. It should be a valid key because we've programmed it, but it's one of those things where we should always double check these things. Right, so we found our IA action. So we've made sure it matches, and if so, we get the key associated with that action, because we know it's input interact, because that's what we're sending through. So we've now checked to see if we've got a valid key that matches it. Yeah. If it's true, off this, we do our branch here, connect that in just to check that the key is valid, that there is one set, because it might not be set. If it's not set, it's not going to return one. And then if it's true, we return the key. So to return the key, if we click back here, we need to add an output. So if you click plus, call it key, and change the type to key, and that's it. Then another plus, call it success, and set this one to Boolean. Okay, bring this back over here. So we've checked our key is valid, and well, so we've found our IA interact, and then if nothing happens, it'll come out here, which means it will just carry on with the loop. If there's no interact on the end of that, it'll just carry on with the loop till it finds what it wants. Then we've checked say the key is valid, and then we come out. If the key is valid, we want to return it. So we need to type return, add return node. We know the key is valid, so we're going to send this key here out there, and just double click that node, and again make it just a little bit tidier. So check we've got our interact, check we've got a valid key mapped to that interact. If we do, we come out and we say success. Yeah. If either of these fails, we'll just come out and we'll go add return node, and we're going to send no key and no success. Yeah, and that's for both of these failures here. They both go the same place. So bring that out and that there, and there we go. That's essentially what I've got here. So I could just delete that and I won't have an issue because I know it's identical. Just to reiterate, we check our mapping context, we get the default key mappings, we then break them down, loop through them to check if we have our IA interact, which is coming from here, our interact action. If it's the same, we come out and we come through here. In fact, no, get rid of that one. We come through here, check that the key is set and is valid, come through here, and we send the key back and say success. Okay. If it's false here, we don't want to do anything because we're just going to loop round because it doesn't match here. And then on completed here, we will set that to here. The reason is that if it's got to the end and it hasn't come out and returned, we then want to return back and false, not from here, because what happens is if there's 4 or 5 different mapping contexts, if it's false on the first one, then if we come out and go there, we're not going to have the value we want. We want to check the rest of them and then kick it out afterwards. So we're not going to kick it out till we're completely cleared. If it's completely completed, it means we haven't found one, we haven't returned, so we're going to come out and return empty-handed. The same as if this is wrong and there's no mapping. Yeah, I hope you can understand that. I'm not the best at explaining things sometimes. So yeah, we check we've got a mapping context. If it's not that one, go to the next one. Yeah, if none of them match, it comes out blank. If we get a match, we then check the key is mapped. If it's true, we send back the key. If it's not, we come back empty-handed. Yeah. Save and compile. That's your BFL game. You could put this wherever you like. It doesn't make no difference. So that's why here this get mappings appears. So you come off and type get key, and you got key mappings. And if you scroll up a bit, see it's got BPFL game. That's our blueprint library. Click on that. Yep. I'm going to delete it because I've got one. You want to set your mapping context to IMC interact. Yep. And the action to interact. Yep. If this comes out as true, let's do false first. If this comes out as success is false, it comes out, and all we do is what we did before. We show our interact widget like this, but without an icon on it. Yeah, that's what it does. So let's add this in here so we can go through the whole chain. So we'll come out, get key mappings. Okay. And then if we check our success with a branch, and then if it's false, we return just the text but with no icon. Yeah, and that's what we was doing before. We didn't have an icon, so we're just going to send that back without an icon. So the mapping context was interact and the action was IA interact. So now we've got a success. We need to get the icon. Okay, so if this is success, we need to get the icon. And we've got another function in my BPFL game, and it's called get icon by key. So if you hit the plus, create a function get icon by key. If I double click this, right, and now this is where it can get a little bit messy, so I'm going to have to show you something before we do this. This basically, I've stored the keys in the game mode. That might not be the best place to put it, but I'm putting it in there for now because that's a consistent place, the game mode. It's going to be persistent throughout. So I've put all the icons in there, and we then search through, find the matching icon, and we return it. So let's just build the function first, and then I will show you how to make the icons. So click on your get icon by key, click the plus on the input, call it key, and I've type key. Just type key in there and just type key, not key event or any of those, just key. Then come to your outputs, click a plus, call it icon, and make that of type texture texture 2D. Again, plus, call it success, and type of Boolean. Okay. We can't do any of this yet because we have not got any icons. So, icons, where are we going to get icons? Well, I'm going to put a link in the description below and I will show you some icons. So if I drag this across, we have this asset pack from Kenny. And the nice thing that Kenny's done is they've made this a Creative Commons CC0, which means it's license free for you to use commercially or privately or whatever, no attribution, blah blah blah. So yeah, you can get information if you click the Creative Commons license here. Basically what he's done, he's made icons for virtually any occasion when it comes to digital gaming. So we've got Xbox Series buttons, we have PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, Switch 2, Steam Deck, some generic ones. What else is this? Never heard of Playdate, don't know that. They've got some flares and overlays which are good for highlighting things. A Steam controller, a Nintendo Wii, a GameCube and a Wii U. But one I didn't mention, I skipped, is this one, keyboard and mouse, and that's the important one. Here is a load of icons we can use for free without written permission, but you may donate if required, if you want to, and I would suggest doing that. There's a donate button up here. It'll also ask you when you download. This guy's done some really cool icons here, and I think they're pretty snazzy. I don't know if you agree, but I do. I think they're pretty good, and to use them for free is a bit of a steal. So if you hit download here, you can either continue without donating, but please, if you can, send him a donation, and you will download a zip file. Okay, and what you want to do is open that zip file, and you want to save it somewhere on your hard drive. If I get rid of this for now, when you open it, mine opens in WinRAR or WinZip, whichever. You're presented with this. You've got all the icons all built in at once. So I'm only interested in the keyboard and mouse. So if you double click on those, and you're not really interested in these, the ones you want are, I think, double, or is it default? I think it's double. Yeah, double the size. Yeah. So if you double click on the folder double, and then you've got all these. What I would do if I was you is extract them. I'm just going to extract just that one. So if you right click on it and extract files to the specified folder, and I'm going to call it Kenny Input Prompts. Yeah. So now I've done that, I'm going to open up that folder. Now you can't see them because they're masked, but they are there. If you look, if you highlight over them, they're all there. What you then do is either select just the ones you want or select all of them, and you drag them in to, so I put them into textures. I create a folder called textures in my content drawer. So I go to content, right click, add folder, and call it textures. I then called it icons. I called it keyboard and mouse, and then I put them all in here. And this is what happens if you go to import and you choose all those. We'll go downloads, Kenny Input Prompts, double. Yeah, select all, control with the Control I key, and click open. It will import them all here. You'll get a lot of pop-ups for a bit, and it will import them all here. Yeah, so you've got a load of textures in there. Do consider deleting any ones that you don't use. So say you didn't use this keyboard key, remove them, because obviously when you pack your game, all this is going to be in there. And if you don't use any of these, then you don't want these icons. You don't want them just packing in with your game for no reason. So now you have all of these icons ready to use, but it's not so simple and straightforward as that. So what I did, I created an object in the game mode. So if we go into your content drawer, go back to your blueprints, and I believe it's in here, yeah, first person game mode. Okay, if you double click that, and then if you click add on variables, call it icons, and you want to, let's do this, let me do it myself from scratch. So if I call this icons 2, yeah, the type you want is, I believe, we want texture 2D. There we go. Object reference. Click your little icon I. Okay, and then what you want to do is come over here and choose map. No, it always reverses it. So yeah, maybe before you set the map, let's set that back to single. Change that there to key. Make it a bit easier, to key, and just choose key. Yeah. Then come up here, choose map, and then you have a separate object here. So key is the key, technically the key itself, literally a keyboard key is the key, and then this integer you want to change that to texture 2D. Object reference. If you compile, oops, ignore that, compile and save, you then have this array of elements. Yeah, so all I've done at the moment is I've added 2. Okay, I've only got Q and E in there. That's because I couldn't be bothered to do them all in one go. I might write a script, a Python script or something, just to automatically do this for me. But to do so, you come to your elements, make sure you've called yours icons. I'll just call this icons 2 just to show you. So make sure you're on icons. Click the plus on the elements, click here and press E. Yeah, and then leaving that on the screen, come to your content drawer, go back to your textures, keyboard and mouse, and find your E key. E key sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? E key. So E's F. Have I missed it? Have I scrolled to? Yes, I have. Now you can either have the solid fill or the outline fill. Choice is yours, whichever style you want to use. Just choose one of them. So if I click that one, and then if I click this arrow here, it's stored. Yeah, I now have that stored in there. I actually put 2 in. I'm going to delete this. I added another mapping and I did the Q just to prove that you can switch between E and Q, which is what I showed you earlier. That's why I chose those particular letters, because I'd already saved them in there. If you want others in there, you need to add them all in, and then compile and save. And basically that stores them in the game mode, and that means they're freely available to use anywhere. It might not be the best place to use them. If you find somewhere better, that's perfectly fine, you do that. But I've stored them in the game mode because the game mode's persistent. Okay, so I'll get icons by key. Let me disconnect this. We've got our key as the input, and we've got icon and success as the output. So to get the game mode that we've just stored those icons in, we need to drag off here and we need to cast to BP, and it's first person game mode. It's there at the top, first person game mode. Yeah, but we need to get the game mode first, and to get the game mode you need to right click here and put get game mode and drag that into there. But that's too easy. They want this world context object. So why they've done it like this, I don't know, because all you have to do is drag off that and type in world context and get world context, and there you go. That's your world context object. Bit convoluted, but there you go. So what I did then, I brought this down. So now we're just basically going to find if that icon exists. Yeah, so we've got our game mode. We then need to grab our icons. So if you just put get icons, and you can see it's our little mapped object, and then from there we need to find, just type find, and because our icons are mapped by a key, we can just send our key through to there. Do that, and then just bring that down a bit, just tidy it up. Yeah, so we've got our icons and we found the key we want. The good thing about this, we don't need to do a Boolean check now, because here, as you can see, it's already giving us a success or not. Yeah, so we now know that we're, let's make this a bit tidier, we now know that whether we've got an answer or not. So if we come off this and just type return node and add a return node. So we'll do our check on the other side. So we've got our icon, if it exists, and we've got our whether it was successful or not. If there was a problem overall with this cast, I'm going to send that out to a return node with no success. So if I'll do it up here. So if I just took there and put add return node there, and I'm going to send blank success, blank icon. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of all that because that was my old one. It's exactly the same pretty much. So this returns whether it was successful and the icon that we had, or unsuccessful with no icon, and that's it. Back to our BPC trace. We now, as we've got a successful key mapping here, we now need to get our key. And again, if we drag off, get icon, and it's icon by key. That is our function here. Automatically available as it's a blueprint library. Bring this down a bit because we're going to start getting a little messy. In fact, it really didn't matter. We need to get our key out of this mappings and plug that into there. Let's bring you down. There we go. And then bring you just over to the right a little. There we go. So now we've got our key. We can send that back to this, but obviously this one's our one without an icon. So we just need to, if you select all of that and bring your mouse further up, Control D, plug that in, plug that in, there, bring that across. But first we want to do a branch off here. Our success is the condition, true there and false there. Again, no icon. Let's just line these up a little bit, make it a little tidier, bring you down a little tidier. But we also need our interaction text, so I'm going to double click here. I'm going to link that in there. We're sending that regardless, yeah, because we know what that is. We've already got that information. So yeah, we now have, let's just delete this lot here. In fact, I'm just going to delete the lot so that you've got the same as me, exactly the same. Okay, get trace by channel, make sure it implements the interface, and we Boolean check it. If not, we're going to clear the interact target and we're going to hide the interaction widget. Same as before, no different. If it's true and we are an interface object, we set the interact target, we get the interact text, We then check our IMC interact and IA interact and make sure it's valid and has a key. It comes out, we have a valid key. If not, we just output just the text. If true, we then get the icon from the key. If that's a success, we send back the icon and the text. If it's a fail, we send back just the text like we did previously. And that's as simple as it can be. And if I compile and save that, you should now have, if you've mapped your key correctly, an E. And if you've done the Q as well, you can change it to Q and it will automatically get it. It doesn't matter what key you've got. And I've broken mine. How have I broken mine? Yeah, for some reason it got pruned. I don't know why. Yeah, that's really strange. I don't know how that managed to get all disconnected inside that function. It's really strange. I know I haven't been into that function, so I don't know how it got disconnected. So yeah, you probably had a fine trace. I didn't. Oh geez. Let's say the joys of coding. So yeah, now you should have an icon and you should have some text and you have a full trace. Sorry this has been a long one. There was a lot more to it than I expected. So yeah, I hope that wasn't too confusing for you, and we'll get on to the next episode very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again later. Bye bye.